Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to support Labour's position in this debate, sir, which is that this bill should not proceed any further. We supported the bill at the first reading and believed that it had considerable merit and deserved the chance for proper scrutiny and analysis and debate at the Select Committee, and that is what it got, sir. I want to join those before me in this debate who have acknowledged the good intentions of Te Orotoa Flavel in bringing this bill to the House. And there's no doubt, sir, that the committee engaged with a great deal of seriousness with this bill. And I think almost all of the submitters, 71 of them, presented submissions to the committee. Almost everybody, I think, recognised that there are significant issues of right and of justice associated with this bill, and as a consequence, there was a seriousness about the debate. However, at the conclusion of the debate, a strong view had formed on the committee that this bill carries with it too many unintended consequences, and that the effective result of this bill would be to open a can of worms that is too big and too challenging for the current legal framework in this area to deal with, and that the consequences would make it unworkable. I want to just reflect a little bit about the Public Works Act, sir, and what an important role it plays within our legal system and within the modern history of this country. Others have noted that the view that has been formed in the course of the committee process was that this bill correctly identified a problem, but offered an unworkable solution. And I want to suggest, sir, that part of the reason for that is that the underlying problem is that the Public Works Act itself represents a trade-off between two different principles, two different value sets. On the one hand, you've got private property rights, which play a central role in our society, in our culture. And on the other hand, the Public Works Act is a product of 19th and 20th century thinking about the development of the state, about the development of infrastructure, of ports, of roads, of bridges, of railways, of public buildings, and the full gamut of physical infrastructure that is needed for the development of the state and for the pursuit of the public good. And there's no doubt that in New Zealand, as elsewhere around the world, the original Public Works Act, which we inherited from the British jurisdiction, played a critical role in the early kind of nation building of Julius Vogel, with the expansion of roads and rail and so on. And over the years, the legislation has evolved to recognise the rights of property owners. But nevertheless, the Public Works Act itself gives powers to the state to override private property rights and in the interests of the community. And those two values are in contradiction, and a careful kind of web of concessions and rights and responsibilities and obligations has built up over the years around the Public Works Act. And to start unpicking that now, or to seriously renegotiate the balance between these two legal principles is an extremely ambitious proposition that almost all of the submitters and the committee was not willing to entertain. There are two key concerns that emerged from the discussions at the committee, sir, and the first is the retrospective nature of the application of the buyback provisions and the salatium provisions, which was felt by many of the submitters, and I think by most of the committee at least, were that it would have destabilising, if you like, and impractical consequences for the administration of the Public Works Act in New Zealand. The effect of the passage of this bill in its current form would have been overnight to make all land that had been acquired under the Public Works Act suddenly would have been deemed surplus land, and it would have necessitated a massive project of historical research and legal determination to work out whether or not thousands and thousands of pieces of land from one end of this country to the other, whether or not to determine whether or not the provisions of this Act would have applied, and whether or not former owners or their successors could be identified, and whether or not land would have to be offered back. Thousands of properties, sir, since the Public Works Act was enacted in the 1870s, all around the country, used by the Crown and local authorities for numerous different purposes. And that would, we believe, would have been a completely unworkable outcome. The second big objection is about the impact on the future use of land, and that the provisions of this bill, sir, would have created such an enormous compliance cost on local government, on the state, and the various other Crown entities who are empowered under the Public Works Act, who currently have huge portfolios of land that have been acquired under the Act and are being either held for some future public work, being in the process of being transferred or set apart for some reason, or are in the process of being disposed of when no longer required. And the view that we heard from many of the submitters, particularly from local government, from airports and ports, was that the rationale that's built into the Public Works Act that allows the use of a piece of land that's been acquired under the Act to be changed over time if it is seen to be in the public interest, that is, on balance, a hugely more efficient and cost-effective way to use these resources than it would be to have to hand that back to former owners, or to offer that land back to former owners before the use could be changed. That the effect of the SIR would be to completely kind of freeze up the whole process of the acquisition of land under the Public Works Act for infrastructure. And personally, I'm extremely conscious that we have an infrastructure deficit in this country, and when I look at Auckland, the needs for investment in infrastructure are huge over the next couple of decades, and we're talking about rail, the rail system that Auckland needs, that Stephen Joyce is backpedalling on as fast as he can go, the investment in broadband, the investment in water infrastructure and electricity infrastructure. These needs are huge, sir, in our country's biggest city, and the appropriation of land under the Public Works Act for this infrastructure, and not just for roads and rail and electricity and water, but also for urban renewal projects, the urban renewal projects that are so needed in Auckland, that will require the agglomeration of land under the Public Works Act to undertake the kind of ambitious urban renewal that Auckland needs. I would hate to see the ability to acquire land for these purposes compromised or jeopardised, sir. So those are the two main objections that emerged from the discussions in the committee. But I want to just cite, sir, an example that Waitakere City brought to the committee about land on the Te Atatu Peninsula that was acquired by the Auckland Harbour Board in the 1950s. And a large tract of land on the Te Atatu Peninsula that they thought might be needed for a future port for Auckland. Now, there's no evidence, sir, that land was compulsorily acquired. It was negotiated and paid for, and the land was held. No port was ever built there, obviously, and periodically Waitakere City reviewed it. Now, the land has been used for many other public purposes, including set aside for a